first message I always give is never chase money. Money is an outcome. Chase your idea if you believe that idea is what is going to change the world. The passion behind that idea and the people who put behind that idea are the only messages I give to them. Are you very clearly focused on why you chose this idea and what is the impact it's going to create? And ultimately, that will result in the financials which you are hoping it will happen.
The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.
Yes, so we have Mr. Ramadorai joining in from Mumbai. Hi, Mr. Ramadorai. How was the day for you so far?
Good. Good morning. I think great beginning. I was traveling and I just got back to Mumbai last evening.
Absolutely, I can understand. Yeah. Sir, you joined TCS in the early 70s and as a systems engineer and then went on to become the CEO in the late 90s. Can you share that transformation journey and what kind of challenges were then? The reason I ask you this question is a lot of today when you talk of tech and startup culture, people probably haven't even thought of what kind of challenges were then. So how was the life then for you? Maybe if you could share with us.
I think the first challenge was, why should I come back to India? I'm having a good job in the US, having had a good education, and most of my fellow colleagues or classmates all didn't want to come back, and I almost thought that I'll go, but I'll come back within 6 months or something like that. So you were not looking for a salary, you're not looking for a specific opportunity, but you're looking at based on how you have been brought up, how you have been inculcated over a period of time when you grew up, that there are 2 or 3 reasons you should come back to India. One was, are you working for the government or are you working for the right organization? And top of the list was always Tata. Second thing was, as a professional, can you relate to the environment and take certain challenges which were in the making and in the discussions. So even when they interviewed me in California, before I decided to take a plunge, at least I got a little bit of an idea of what is the kind of organization we are trying to create. So I think the third main reason was my parents wanted me to get married, so that was the other reason. So between a professional opportunity, even though it had a lot of risk, no compensation of any comparables, or a green card and not being interested in that, were the reasons which forced me to come back. I think the rest of it is, as we go through this interview, we can always cover the portions of that. But I think taking that first step of saying that you're going to be back, but you're not going to look back and say that things are not working out here, so back to back and go back. That was never the idea.
Okay. You took over as a CEO of TCS when the revenues were around USD $150 million. And when you retired, it was a whopping $6 billion US. Amazing shift, right? So I'm sure there must have been definitely a paradigm shift in the way you thought of it, the way you worked with TCS, the way things, turned out. What were those kind of things that were in your mind that point in time when such amazing volumes of numbers that we saw for TCS?
I think the thoughts in your mind was you got to be different from your predecessor in terms of how you scale up the organization. Which means you got to build a team which is absolutely world class. Second thing is you have to empower the team and then make them responsible and then help them as often as they need or review their workings as often as it needed. Set up the processes and systems which are absolutely the only way to run an organization as it scales up, and bring in digitalization and digital framework as quickly as possible. Last but not the least was to invest in technology proactively so that the learning and development of the people at large, so that they can relate to the world, were some of the key ingredients. R&D as part of it, even though my predecessor started it, but scaling up that R&D was very necessary. But it was an outcome-based R&D where the input to a problem coming as output in terms of research, but that becomes the input to the operations itself. And then you get the feedback from the market and feed it back to the R&D culture.
Yeah.
So I think very professionally, very methodically, and very consciously building the talent and building the capabilities and investment in technology were the things which we continuously practiced. Second thing was a can-do attitude and an attitude of a culture where you will speak only when it is necessary, and you will build the organization by demonstrating to our customers, because they were the reference for any future sales, either because it's a repeat business from the same customer, or you mine a customer, or alternatively, how do you expand using that as a reference in a same industry or adjacent industry. It was very clearly an articulated strategy, and then as part of the visioning exercise, which I started as CEO in 1996, picking the leadership team and being together with the team, and then coming out with this objective of top 10 by 2010. The top 20 was 10. Top 10 was not just a revenue and a profit. Revenue, profitability, talent, investments, quality, etc., etc. So that the 10 parameters we had to beat if we had to get that 2010 vision done. And implementation through a rigor which was very unparalleled. I think that became a benchmark. For example, financials at the end of every quarter, we must finish by the 10th of the following month. Across jurisdictions, because we are spread all over the world. So we have to take the subsidiaries, branches, whatever they may be, consolidating as a full audit by the 10th of the end of quarter for the following month. These were some raising the bar kind of a thing. And measuring, quality, learning, development, investments in technology. And we came to the brand building much later than the initial stages. And the reason was we were only accountable to one owner, namely Tata Sons, till we went public in 2004. Prior to that, we started some of these activities with regard to marketing, branding, and what this institution stands for. But that was very simple mantra of you deliver on your promises, and you promise only what you can deliver. It's very simple, and it's very easy to understand for the people. When you say top 10 by 2010, it was not so 100 parameters where people get confused. What is my role in the organization, and what am I supposed to, and how it cascades as an overall balanced scorecard or a metrics for the organization. So this went on because we made sure the alignment was total. We had some external facilitators from Harvard, etc. But more importantly, doing the job, putting your head down and working as teams to deliver excellence. And continuous excellence was the only measure. I think that's what we did. And that continues as a culture where TCS deliveries across the world, in India, in other geographies. We are respected for professionalism, we are respected for building people, we are respected for giving the right advice to the customer by demonstrating or by references, and governance, and ensuring that the security, integrity, data protection, which are recent ones, are all absolutely valid.
Okay, wonderful. So TCS, like other peer companies you had at that point in time, has had a great impact, IT in general, from India's contribution, right, globally. But it must have not been easy, right? Because today, yes, India has made a mark, and technology is recognized. But for those days, it must have been a very difficult challenge, even to say that you're from India. If you could share some of your experiences.
Yeah, I think 1979 is when I took over as the head of our US operations as the first person. TCS had never sent anybody abroad, and I was the first guy as a marketing head or a sales head or a country head. I think the selling was purely by cold calling, which means knocking at the doors of the potential customers, looking for a champion who understood you because you had studied there, you are a member of professional bodies like the IEEE, and some of the connects through friendships we had developed during the course of your stay there as a student. I think beyond that, the only integrity was give me a chance, we'll demonstrate. If you don't give a chance, we can't demonstrate. In the questions where we have got so much of experience with so many people here, why would I even look at you and that too from India all the way? So I said nothing wrong in trying. At the most, you'll lose a project or you lose some time and then pack up my bags and go. So it was a lot of knocking the doors, cold calling, and incremental sales. One project leading to another, second project leading to another kind of a thing, which we practiced, and that's what we propagated across. I think the fact that you're from California, computer science, you're from Indian Institute of Science, etc., helped you to build a credibility and a relationship with the potential customers. But then those were the kind of challenges to approach the market because the market was not in India. The market was outside the country. The second challenge was with regard to the investments, and that's where we faced the maximum challenges because it was a regulatory regime. Licensing was the way of life. We had to go to the Department of Electronics, which was then called, and then convince them why we need a certain technology and why we need to invest that kind of configuration. When I say configuration, memory, disk, tapes, whatever it is, which make up the ability to do certain type of projects or programs. I think that took enormous time. In some cases, it took more than 2 years to 3 years to get the first license. But the conditions on the license were pretty scary, which means you had to accept an export obligation of 250% of the total landed cost of the computer within a period of 5 years. If we didn't do that, the machines would be seized and we are subjected to potential prosecution. Second thing was the customs duties. The cost of a landed computer was very, very high. But I must say, both my bosses as well as the executive committee, it used to be called because we don't have a board when you're not a listed company, that trusted us more than anything else, professionals. And that helped us to tackle this problem painfully with the government and convincing our stakeholders, namely Tata Sons, to say that are we really making the right investment? The reason we came back was only because we wanted to do something proactively. If that's not forthcoming, then we have no reason to be here, kind of a thing. So I think the challenge is easily said than done. The government and getting the government contracts and living up to the kind of values which we practice was another challenge because the costs were not to our liking. The contract values were not to our liking. The scope of the project, the scope of the work was also ill-defined locally for sure, where the what we call as scope creep was a major challenge to tackle it. It means you got to be absolutely clear what the contract says and what you will deliver and what you will not take beyond a certain point. But I think those were some challenges we faced in the domestic market. International market, we face the challenges of acceptance as an Indian company, as an Indian organization, and comparing with the IBMs of the world, HPs of the world, Accentures of the world, etc., etc. But I think we tackled it multiple ways. One is to invest in the technology of those countries or those organizations. Second is relating to them through our capability building and demonstrating. Third is, in the case of Powerhouse, where we formed a joint venture in 1978, we marketed and sold only one to State Bank of India, one to the Indian Agricultural Research Statistics, etc., etc. So I think it was living by doing, painfully living by doing, putting up with all the pressures, and the team supporting you, the executive committee supporting you, and all of us were in the same learning plus deployment mode. So I think essentially what we said subsequently when other companies or the competitor listed, we said we were clearing the forest for the industry. Once we have cleared it, everybody is going to run on the highway, which has been happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, sir, an amazing, great learning in terms of perseverance, right? Because today's generation, a lot of them just don't know what is perseverance. because it's
No.
like immediate, it's an insta generation. People think that somebody puts in seed capital itself is an achievement, which is not. It's the first stone, the stepping stone probably for a startup. So what would your message be for these newbies who have now arrived and for whom you guys toiled and made hard work for the highway to be ready?
I think the first message I always give is never chase money. Money is an outcome. Chase your idea if you believe that idea is what is going to change the world. The passion behind that idea and the people who put behind that idea are the only messages I give to them. Are you very clearly focused on why you chose this idea and what is the impact it's going to create? And ultimately, that will result in the financials which you are hoping it will happen. Second message is be honest to yourself and honest to what you promise. And do not try to shortcut, because we are witnessing also today to see what once was a hyped company today, sometimes the financial, the ability to demonstrate good governance are all becoming challenges. So the aberrations have to be minimal and you shouldn't be a part of that aberration at all. But you should build on solid foundations, even if it takes a year or two extra. That's the message I give to the youngsters, which I mentor quite a bit. But I think the idea has to be sound. The implementation of the idea has to be very clear. Scale up of that idea within a narrow focus, which energizes the investors. And last but not the least, demonstrate by doing rather than promising and not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share about your Y2K experience? Because there's an entire generation that doesn't even know what's Y2K. Maybe if you kind of opportunities Y2K provided for companies like you and India as a whole, and the big success on India's tech map.
I think 1998 was the year when the whole Y2K jargon started, because the year 2000 is approaching and the last two digits of the year YY, DDMMYY was the way everything was represented in the computer. YY, when it is 99, what is the next one? Will it come to 0? And the systems will understand, the applications will understand it's going to be 2000 and not something else. So the result, the kind of hype that created, it automatically said that every program has to be modified, every application has to be modified, every industry has to comply with this. Otherwise, it will be a disaster.
Yeah.
Having said that, we decided to invest in what we call in those days was a software factory in Chennai. What we did was we got to automate this process from beginning to end. It will be like a factory from one station to the next station to the next station. How do you do the checking to conversion to where areas we learn to do it? And we built some automated tools also to say that look at this program and see where all we have to modify based on scanning the application itself. So I think we created what we call as a Y2K factory in Chennai. We had put up a machine, IBM large 3090 class of machine, which was a water-cooled machine, first of its kind in the country. And we trained our people absolutely both in installation, implementation, and addressing the Y2K. We also gave a list of challenges for automation of this Y2K exercise in the research facility in Pune, who gave a lot of contribution to that. Some of the tool sets that were required. So with the speed, because the time is limited, you got to complete everything before 2000.
Yeah.
How do you accelerate this whole thing? Yeah. And that's how the whole industry followed us to make sure that we can do it. But we looked at it not by throwing only thousands of people, but also automating it and creating a software factory kind of an environment and quality, etc. But yes, we seized on that opportunity and we were able to demonstrate millions of applications, millions of lines of code, and making sure they complied with the year 2000 requirement.
Okay, wonderful. Let's talk about skills development. That's your area of focus now, and with Mission Karmayogi. Maybe you could share with us, with our audiences, what's the need for it? Why did the government approach you? And given today's India, right, the Amrit Kal as we talk, the next 25 years are very important, for that base foundation of India to be a Viksit Bharat. What's the roadmap on skills development, sir?
I think the biggest challenge we had when the former PM called me, based on the set of advisors saying that we need somebody to look at this education and skills. The first point is separation of education and skills, because all of us get confused. Education means skills. No. Skills is what you can do with your hand. Education gives you a level of abstract thinking capability, but if you do not have the skills to do it, you will not be able to relate to it. Second point was, how do you motivate people that skills are as important as education? If you look at Germany, if you look at Australia, if you look at even UK or in the US, whether it form of a community college or some of the other ways they were trying to deploy, the respect for skills, respect for what you can do on the shop floor, and then you ultimately come to the boardroom as a CEO or a very senior executive is well known. In our country, it was never a case where a person with the skills, exception being the IT industry, and then being competent as a mason, as a welder, as a carpenter, as a machinist, as whatever. I think these were some things which had to be communicated. Second thing is, the rigor of operation is what gives us the strength to tackle the problems. I started as a junior most programmer, hardware engineer, hardware installation, doing with your hands, implementing on the program, writing and rechecking the code of your colleagues. It was a journey of excellence which gives us the confidence that no operations would scare us. If you want to get into operations, skills become very fundamental, whether in the services industry or the manufacturing industry or a non-profit industry or whatever it is. That was the thinking behind starting this whole National Skill Development Corporation and the National Skill Development Agency, which was the overall policy-making body, which was part of the Planning Commission. The reason they requested me to join, namely at the PM level, was because you have addressed some scale problems in the IT industry, and you have grown up to this kind of a number, which we talked about, so that you will have at least an opportunity to advise us and make sure that this is followed through. That is when we laid down the policies, and second, through the NSDC, created structures which could encourage the private players to be a part of this ecosystem. Namely, I want to get into the skill, there'll be certain money for every person I scale or train or skill, and then deploying them at the jobs. If jobs were not there, why would I get skill? Why would I pay even a rupee? So the convincing of them through the sector skill councils, mapping the jobs from level 0 to level 10, we did all those things, which created 30 or 40 skill sector councils. I think the implementation still was slow because the state had to be a part of this whole thing, because state level jobs, etc. I think then subsequently we matured to form a ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship, and the current government of course pushed it very aggressively. And the ministry was formed and the people concerned were behind it. The level of importance that has been given is what the journey was. But I think the good thing is everybody understood it's not going to be a one-year journey. The ITIs, the polytechnics, the skills within the colleges using their infrastructure, all these had to be brought together and incrementally measured. And the acceptance by the corporate to say that skills are essential, it can't be on the just put the person on the job and then safety, everything is compromised and we couldn't do that kind of a thing. So it became a lot of convincing where the demand side, the acceptance by the demand players to say that skills are too important, and if we have to relate to the world and a world-class quality, if you don't incorporate those, it will be only as good as the skilled professionals or unskilled labor. Still have those challenges, which is very not very well understood. But I think the journey has been slow. The journey has got its acceptance. The NEP also brings in a level of skills building in the schools and colleges, giving pathways where you can take a break from the educational system and go to the skills ecosystem, take the credits and then come back to the educational system. So we're given all these pathways, etc., and demonstrated at scale quite a bit of this exercise. But I think again, it is one of those where you start afresh, like the IT industry, but push that through a list of, set of demonstrations. But more importantly, the supply to demand and digitally connecting them, all this has become very important. The what do you call, job exchanges did certain things, but those are all didn't deliver the fruits we expected.
You have been spearheading the technology, the IT industry for many years. Then you are also the chairman of the PSC, where you saw it where you saw India from a financial lens. Then you moved on into the Mission Karmayogi, where you see skills development as a niche area for India. What's your vision, sir, of India of the next 5 to 10 years, given the fact that our government and hopefully, definitely, coming up in the next, election results are announced, we have a long way to go. What's your vision of India in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think 2047 is the year where we are going to be celebrating the centenary of our independence. I think you got a fixed time where you got to demonstrate that it's really a skilled, advanced, educated nation. Second thing we'd like to demonstrate across sectors, across anything, is a true Karmayogi, namely, I am accountable to the citizens at large, irrespective of which part of the country, which village or which panchayat they come from. That is where the mass is, that is where the accountability should rest.
Yeah.
And we need to build the competencies to do it. Yeah. So what we are saying is the whole Mission Karmayogi Bharat, along with the Capacity Building Commission, is one which is going to go from a rule to a role-based model of governance. Second thing is a competency metrics for every single civil servant, not at the high level, but from the entry level. And also section officers, to anybody who is part of the government service. And the Seva mindset has to set in, and we have to do a digital model, and making sure every institution that is connected with it, whether it's the central training institutions, advanced training institutions, private players, multilateral funding, multilateral institutions, or even universities from abroad or domestic, plus private sector players, whether it is the Tata Group or Birla Group or Reliance or whatever it is, they have a lot of content. Yeah. So how do you bring in so that it's an open source movement? Yeah. And very similar to the digital public good, we are saying that it's a digital public service which is going to be shared not only within the country but across the country, across the various countries, So that the scale of the problem, if we take the center, the state government, PSUs, etc., we are talking about 30 plus million civil servants. So it's again a highly scaled problem. A lot of automation is required. A lot of AI may be required in the future. Self-learning, affordable learning, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it is in services. And the governance becomes more accountable, more measurable, and more demonstrable. And the voice of the customer, namely the citizens, have to tell us whether we are doing a good job as a nation or not. It's not my telling or you telling or somebody saying that we are doing a great job. But the data must speak, and the data is only through the voice of the customer, which is the citizens in this case.
Absolutely. Sir, tell us about Anwesha Trust. It's done remarkable work in the rural areas of India, and that's where it's needed. What's been the kind of contribution, and what's the role of Anwesha Trust?
Anwesha Trust, where me and my wife started it, with an idea that how do you relate to the social causes? Whether it's with regard to supporting a patient, supporting a hospital, supporting water, supporting a school, education, etc. Yeah. And we have picked up in the rural area, starting with our own village near Tanjore, and started addressing the school requirements, the public schools, the government schools. I think in this journey, we are taking the help of some local organizations who know how to work and who have a connection with the NGOs. So we do funding, we do visit these locations, we get reports regularly and see where the money has to be deployed. So it is sharing of the idea, sharing of digitalization, sharing of, she being also a teacher, she taught at the school level, then of course at the SchoolNet India. Then now she is involved in teaching a lot of children with learning disabilities. So I think it's a combination of these which forces us to look at this together. And time had come where do something together in addition to what we have been doing individually over the last 40, 50 years.
Wonderful work there, and I'm sure so much of contribution to the place where really India needs, in the rural area of India. One last question before I let you go, sir. What's a day like for Mr. Ramadorai when he's not working? What's a day of? How do you unwind?
I think I first of all get up very early. I'm
Okay.
one of those who gets up by 5 o'clock. And the day is reading whatever I need to read, whether it's technical, whether it is some scriptures, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But at least it's a learning, self-learning exercise and reflections, which is the most important thing. Second thing is walks are our passion, so we have to go for a walk. In addition to, of course, the yoga and other things, but walk is a must every day, both possible both in the morning and evening, but definitely in the morning. Minimum measurement for that is 4 to 5 kilometers a day. Then is the usual meetings, everything, etc. The only thing that has changed is you're no longer measuring yourself by the money you made for corporation. You're measuring yourself by the impact. Am I impacting somebody who needs it? And whether it's a hospital, we were involved in building a children's hospital exclusively. We were involved with the Center for Energy, Environment and Water, involved with the Public Health Foundation of India, involved with the British Asia India Foundation, or some of the academic institutions, etc. So I think music is the other passion where we listen to music a lot. She is a professional singer and Carnatic music and Hindustani vocal more often now.
Okay.
So we attend a lot of concerts, listen to a lot of music, and with the Kalakshetra Foundation and the chairperson, all those things matter because we grew up with music at home. We are a family, both sides of people who are passionate about music. But I think typical day is that, and then meeting friends and traveling. We travel quite a bit.
Wonderful. Mr. Ramadorai, thank you so much for being on my podcast, The Sound of Money. And also the kind of life you are now, you experienced. It's not about you, but the kind of contribution that you have done for the country, the society as a whole is of immense value. Thank you so much for this as well. And thank you so much for being on my podcast, The Sound of Money. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Really happy to connect with you. If you are in Mumbai, please look me up.
Sure. And well, with that, we come to the end of this episode of this podcast, Sound of Money, with me, Santosh Sirur, and my guest, Mr. S Ramadorai. Thank you once again for being on this podcast, Sound of Money. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.